All right, Judd Apatow is here. We're taping this on the same day we just did the Say Anything rewatchables, so it's like a double header. So now we did the rewatchables first. Now you're like a little groggy. It's like you had like a couple drinks. It's later at night. Who God only knows what you're gonna say. You have a new movie coming out June 12th, King of Staten Island. What is your first movie in 4 years that you directed?
Yeah, Trainwreck came out in 2015.
5 years.
On what you consider directed, because I directed 3 documentaries in the middle there. The one about Dwight Gooden,
right.
Darryl Strawberry, the 30 for 30, and the one about Gary Shandling, and another one about the Avett brothers. That's directing. You know, you've made some docs.
I meant movie directing.
Movies with scripts. Yeah, and I did a lot of Crashing and Love, and I didn't direct over at Girls, but working over there. So I was busy, and I had one movie fall apart, and it takes a while to find something you want to obsess over. It's so much work, and for me, I try to never do it unless I'm completely obsessed with the idea. You don't want me walking in for the paycheck. Like that's not going to result in anything that is ever going to be on the rewatchables.
Well, think about the Avett Brothers doc and the Shandling doc. That was a good example, right? You're like all the way in on those. And unfortunately for me, my wife and the Avett Brothers, as it's kind of taken over the last 18 months of my life, and I partly blame you.
Yeah, she's in love with them, and I get it. It's
bullshit. She fucking went to Boston once and told me she was going to see her friend, and I got to catch up. And then all of a sudden they're in Worcester for an Avett Brothers show. And I'm like, what the, you do? That's why you went back. Why'd you lie to me? She's just hiding things from me. But yeah, they have a rabid fan base that is super loyal. It's unusual in these times.
Yeah, they're fantastic. The movie is called May It Last. And me and my friend Michael Bonfiglio followed them around for a couple of years with no sense of what it was going to be. And then we realized there wasn't a lot of conflict in their life. And we thought, well, maybe this is a movie about good guys who are really nice and make amazing music. And it's just positive. Usually when you make these documentaries, if you're doing the Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry story, it's about a lot of dark, nasty stuff and, people trying to heal themselves in some way. But this was fun to do because it was about creativity and brotherhood and it's a really happy movie. So it's on iTunes. If you're out of content, if your queue is empty, it's on the iTunes.
Well, you had, when you did the Doc and Darryl thing, you had the unexpected wrinkle of thinking that both of their lives were pretty cleaned up and they were in good shape. And then one of the two was not as in good shape as maybe you had thought. And so then you had to figure out how to account for that as you're filming it.
Yeah, and I certainly called you during that time because it was, the initial idea that I had was I had never seen them together talking about their journey.
Yeah,
I had never seen an interview. They had similar journeys in terms of being very young people, having a lot of success and fame and great years performing in baseball, and then this terrible crash. And I never saw them talk to each other about it. So I thought that'd be interesting. I guess partially inspired by the 30 for 30 about Roberto Duran.
Yeah, the No Mas, yeah.
And so while we were making it, we slowly realized that Dwight Gooden was still having a problem.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to make that movie, the unmasking him as still struggling. We felt terrible for him. But he would not acknowledge that it was happening. So as we are speaking to people, it becomes very clear that his struggle isn't over. And I called a lot of people and a lot of documentarians to say, well, what do you do? Because I don't want to hurt his life. But I can't lie at this point. We're pretty deep into this. And after we made the movie, he's had troubles. He got arrested a few months ago. I feel a little differently now talking about it more explicitly because now it's out. So in the movie, I think it's handled more artistically. You can tell what we're signaling mainly through this one scene where he's giving a speech at a restaurant to a bunch of people who clearly hired him to just tell war stories. And you could just tell by the way he is talking, how he looks, and he's so skinny in this giant suit that he's having a hard time. And it's pretty remarkable how long he struggled for. It must be so exhausting. I really have a lot of compassion for that, because I just think when you're caught in that kind of addiction, it really is a nightmare that most people can't even fathom.
Right.
So I hope he's getting the help he needs. And then I just see Daryl Strawberry on TV all the time as a massive Donald Trump supporter. So many confusing feelings.
It is interesting though. When you make a documentary, you do need, you need some breaks sometimes. And I thought that was a bad break, because it was the Doc and Daryl idea was one of the original 30 for 30 ideas. We'd had that idea in 2007. It was like, you make a list of like what would be the 10 docs that haven't happened yet. And that was always, to me, like, that has to be one of them. And, it sucked that he wasn't in great shape when you're actually filming it, but hopefully he'll get better at some point. Did you watch the Michael Jordan one?
I did. Let me say this. I had pizza last night. I'm still here today. I still showed up, even when my pizza was poisoned. Now, let's talk about this for a second. I love the documentary. They did an incredible job. Let's talk about the one flaw of the documentary. You can't present the pizza story like it's just true, because you have to raise the question. Why do you need to lie and say you have the flu? Why can't you just say you had a bad pizza? Like, why do you need an elaborate cover-up for eating too many slices? So I don't know what happened. I'm not even guessing. But I don't believe the pizza part of it, because is that just embarrassing? Like, I had too much pizza. I don't know. It seems to be more to the story, and I wish there was a voice of someone going, really? It was a pizza?
Well, or to me, it's realistic that you order pizza from the one pizza place that's open in Salt Lake City at, 1 a.m. on some night, and that the pizza turned out to be like they use bad sausage or whatever, and you got food poisoning from this crappy pizza place in fucking Utah. Like, that's more believable than 5 guys showing up with a pizza and after having stinked it up or whatever they did.
Well, let's explore this for a second.
Yeah.
When you order a pizza, first of all, they're trying to say that those people know it's for Michael Jordan. When Michael Jordan orders a pizza,
he's not ordering
calling the place. He's like, this is Michael Jordan. I need your finest pizza right now. Like, you don't tell people it's Michael Jordan, especially in another city, because people know that is a dangerous thing. And if 5 people showed up to like ogle at you when they delivered the pizza, that would make you a little bit nervous. And Bill, let me say this. I am saying this as the co-author of the film Celtic Pride.
Right. About
fans kidnapping Damon Wayans before the big game. And what team did he play for? The Utah Jazz.
Right.
So I know a lot about abusing people before big games.
So I've thought this through. The only way I see it being conceivably possible is if the place had closed, but they answered the phone. This was the last place open. They're like, hey, no, we need a pizza. And they're like, no, man, we're closed. Sorry. And they're like, hey, no, we really need that pizza. It's for Michael Jordan, to try to see if they would reopen the pizza place.
That has never happened ever. You know what happens?
It's the only conceivable explanation. Why else would he ever say his name to a pizza place? That's insane.
You know what happens? You're Michael Jordan, which, that's like saying Led Zeppelin or whoever, right?
Yeah.
And you call the front desk and you go, I know room service is closed, but is there any way you guys can make me a roasted chicken? And they go, I'm going to go get that for you right now, sir. I mean, you wouldn't have to go to the local place. Someone would figure out how to do it.
That's the hole in the story. The Marriott where they're staying at is just unwilling to serve Michael Jordan, who's staying in a suite with a piano, but can't get any food. Can't get like a cheese plate.
But do you think if it is true that the reason why he would say he had the flu is because the idea of having food poisoning is embarrassing?
Yes.
Like it shows a weakness of some kind? And also, by the way, we've all had food poisoning. Does it affect you that far into the next day?
They say flu-like symptoms.
Flu-like symptoms.
Whatever that means.
And nobody on the team ever like snitched on the pizza story.
No, not yet. It'll happen at some point. Can we talk about how old are your daughters now?
22 and 17.
Are they both home quarantining with you?
They are. It's all of us here together on a roller coaster of emotions.
So this is like kind of secretly a win for you because there was no scenario where you were going to be with your daughters again this much at the age they're at, right? Like what other scenario would have put them under your roof with nowhere to go and they're just stuck with you?
No other scenario where they would want to talk to me for more than 5 minutes.
Right.
Much less sit down and play board games with me for 3.5 hours.
You're trapped now.
And I think that is part of this that, people are beginning to talk about. I heard Jerry Seinfeld talking about this morning on the radio. You do develop a more intimate relationship with people in your family and your kids because you have a lot of time to fill.
Yeah.
And, at 17 and 22, your kids rightfully are looking to leave the house. They're not looking for marathon mom and dad time.
No.
So you have these moments where you're like, well, this wouldn't have happened. This dinner wouldn't have happened. Us cooking together for 2.5 hours wouldn't have happened. Us watching The Wailing on iTunes wouldn't have happened. Or whatever movie you're watching.
Right.
So I was talking to a friend and we said, this is all like icing moments.
Right. Well, your older daughter, I mean, she's been acting now for how many years now? Like at least 5, right? Like seriously,
I mean, she was in
4 or 5.
Yeah, I mean, she was in Knocked Up, but we shot that in 2006. So that was
but
14 years ago.
But now she's like this is what she does now.
Yeah, I mean, Maude is on Euphoria, and she also is in the TV show Hollywood on Netflix, and she plays Pete Davidson's sister in The King of Staten Island, which was really fun because I hadn't directed her. It was 2011 last time I directed her in This Is 40, and she had those great scenes where she would curse out Leslie and Paul Rudd, and she was fantastic back then. But now she's a very skilled actress. So to have her play Pete's sister, and in all the scenes, she's the person who calls Pete on all his bullshit and is very aggressive with him. So they're really funny, electric scenes.
What is the dynamic? I can't imagine, like, because my daughter is just always going to eye roll me if I screw up in it. Although I have a great daughter, but if I say something that she takes personally, like you just kind of know your own kid in a way that nobody else would understand if they're all in the room with you. So how do you navigate that from a directing standpoint? I'm always interested in how you do that.
The sensitivity of their feelings.
Yeah. Well, especially with you, where it's just you have the lighter and they're covered in gasoline at all times when it's like parent-daughter, right? So it's just different than if you were just a normal director.
Well, on one level, you're allowed to tell them what to do, which, at 22, she's not listening to much at this point.
A little tougher.
So it's on a set, I do have the ability to force her to do things. Like I can actually pick her clothes. Everything in life that you would never allow. I'm going to pick your haircut right now. And sometimes you have a shorthand, where like she'll say, "How was that?" And I can just go like, "Not good at all. Do it better." And then I just walk away. Like sometimes I'm comedically trying to just have her, try some new things. I mean, her instincts are so good. There was a scene where we first meet her character, and I probably made her do it, 8 or 9 times and gave her all sorts of direction. And I got into editing and I watched all the takes. And the first take before I had said one word to her was so much better than after all my adjustments, because she's just so subtle and was already doing it pretty great. But it is definitely fun for us. Like we get a kick out of doing it, and she cares so much. So we have a blast. And Pete is really fun to work with. He's very present and alive. When he's acting, it's not like someone who's making notes in his script, trying to figure out how he's going to do it. He's just living the scene. He is there. You are experiencing that moment. It's almost more like you've entered a reality. It's not like actor boy who's decided like, here I'll be loud and here I'll be quiet. Pete is just very present, and that makes the scenes great.
Why did you, I'm sure this is the question you're going to get asked the most as you promote this movie, but you look at certain people and you spot something in them that makes you want to make a movie with them, and I think this has happened repeatedly over the last few years. What was like the one thing you saw in him that made you think this guy should actually be the lead in a movie?
It's interesting because I always talk about it like it's like sports. You see these rookies and you get excited about them. I remember when I was a kid, we knew Darryl Strawberry was coming the year before.
Right.
We talked about it. They had a Strawberry Sunday from Carvel. We had that promotion. Darryl Strawberry is coming. And then you watched him and you were like, oh, I'm so excited. Even when he wasn't playing well, like, I think it's going to happen. I think this is the guy. I had season tickets to the Lakers when Kobe Bryant started. And I saw all those first games, the games where he was playing terribly. And we would laugh like, look at this guy. He doesn't care that he's missing. He's going to keep trying. It is not slowing him down at all. He is going to figure out how to get this done. And there's been a zillion people who were in the same exact position and never figured it out, right? They never got better. And that's how I look at a lot of these actors and actresses. I'm trying to spot them at that early moment where as a fan, I'm like, I think it's Amy Schumer. I think that's the person who it's going to be. And then as opposed to just watching it, I just try to help them figure out how to tell a story or how to execute who they would be as the star of a movie. But it's very much like a fan who, like when I was a kid, I remember seeing Andy Kaufman on Saturday Night Live, and then I heard he was going to be on Taxi. And I was like, oh my God, Andy Kaufman's on a TV series now. And I would track his career the way I think people follow athletes. And that's how I felt with Pete. I saw him do stand-up. He was 19. And he was tall and lanky and way funnier than I was at 19, darkly funny. And you could feel all the emotion in his eyes and his history and, his joy and his pain. And he was instantly fascinating. And every once in a while, it might happen every few years or once or twice a decade, you get a gut instinct. I think that's the one. I think that's the one who's going to break out.
It's funny. I remember doing that even dating back to like the 80s, right? Like, so, because Letterman would always, especially early when he was in the 82 to 85 range, and he would just get all these people that Carson would never have on.
Yeah.
And you would just become attached to some of them, right? Like it would be like Michael Keaton, and these people they had careers. Like Michael Keaton was in Night Shift, but you would see him on Letterman. You'd be like, I'm with that guy, man. It's going to happen. It's going to happen the biggest way. And Hanks was like that. And Seinfeld was like that. And then there were a couple other ones that didn't totally make it, but you're holding on the hope for, way beyond.
Sure.
You see him pop in a movie like, there he is. But it is funny when you get attached to people. Yeah. What's a Brother Theodore?
But Leno wasn't someone that Johnny Carson loved. And Letterman had him on all the time, but that was partially because Carson didn't want him on all the time. Richard Lewis was somebody that, was on the Tonight Show, but Letterman was the guy who loved him and really put him on all the time.
He used to have George Miller all the time.
Sure.
He used to have his go-to dudes. Leno, the irony of the Leno Letterman thing was just, that was his best guest.
You were never going to get Bill Hicks on the Tonight Show.
No. So it is funny. And with SNL, you could see that they've never totally figured out how to use Pete, but you could tell Lauren is super enamored with him. So they always we'll put him on Update, and they'll always try to work him in things because they know he knew something, but he's not your typical sketch performer like a Will Ferrell, something like that. But he's something.
What's funny is in these at-home shows, Pete has really excelled.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think you're getting a not watered down version of what he finds funny. And I think in a lot of ways, he's just beginning to show people what he can do on that show.
Right.
I've watched a lot of friends get that job and slowly figure out how to navigate the process of how to get sketches approved and on the show. And it's certainly a challenging place. But he is so funny, Pete. I mean, to be around him, he really is ridiculously funny. But I also think he's a great actor. And when I was working with him as an actor, I thought, well, this is really a space he's supposed to be in. He's a great leading man. He's very subtle. When people try too hard, I always call it sweaty. Like, oh, that person's a little sweaty. But Pete's not like that. He's very present, and he's not trying hard in the bad way. He's just real, and he's very willing to be vulnerable in a way most people are not.
You have Buschemi in this movie, and it's like you just he's not in the movie as much as you would normally expect from Steve Buscemi. You're kind of using him. He's just coming off the bench, just shooting some threes, grabbing some rebounds, guarding the other team's best guy for 3 minutes. And I just really like him. And I'm always happy. He's one of those guys, right? You're always happy when he's in the movie.
Oh,
it's
sure.
Like, Steve Buscemi's here.
And you don't want to give it away, but he's just the whole soul of the movie.
Yeah.
And so what he does in the movie, I don't want to give away, but it's very powerful as somebody who is, trying to be there for Pete. Steve Buscemi was a fireman before his acting career took off for about 4 years. And he stayed very close to that community. And when we were writing the movie, the whole time we were like, if we could have Steve be a part of this, it would be so great. And also, there's about a dozen firemen and firewomen in the movie, and half of them were real current firefighters. And so your biggest fear is that it's not going to be accurate, and they're going to be able to call bullshit on it. So we said, if we just fill this set with all the real people, they will tell us if we're making any mistakes here.
Who have you worked with? Just about everybody you've wanted to work with at this point, or is there still an ample list of people you haven't gotten to yet?
I don't think I've worked with almost anybody that I was hoping to work with.
Well, you made a lot of movies, though. You're able to grab people and kind of pick and choose who you want at this point. So who's left?
Well, usually the issue is that like I've only made 6 movies, and so if there's 30 people I dreamed of working with, then that's not going to happen. And a lot of times I'm writing movies about my age group, whatever that happens to be at the time, or younger years. So it usually doesn't line up. So, one of my disappointments in myself is I have not sat down and cranked out the perfect movie for one of my heroes. But that's okay. I mean,
which hero?
I mean, all of them, all the great SNL, Monty Python people that I grew up with. I never had the great idea that would include them. And I hope to have those opportunities. I definitely do. The person that I was able to work with, and it was a dream, was Albert Brooks, who was in This Is 40. And that was everything that I hoped it would be. And, when we were shooting every day, he would email me ideas for jokes for the next day's scene. And that was the best part of my day, was the email from Albert. You know what? I can say this here. And it was always great. It was always fantastic. He was really fun.
Did you ever cross paths with Super Dave?
I never met Super Dave, who couldn't be funnier, but I don't think I've
never
met him.
It seems like people are either on the I've crossed paths with Albert Brooks side, or they're on the I've crossed paths with Super Dave side, but nobody's ever been able to do the compare and contrast.
No, I couldn't do a compare and contrast.
Because Super Dave was in all the the Kimmel circles, so we got to know him a little bit, and he was like, it's just hard to believe they were related. It's got to be one of the strangest sibling combos that we've had. What about LeBron James? So now that he moved to LA, are you guys just Just you're
It's so
at
funny.
each other's house on Tuesdays. How does it work?
It's so funny because you have this like very intimate week where you spend all day every day with LeBron James, which I also just find so funny.
Yeah.
It's just like having Babe Ruth on your set every day. And he's also there to act. And he hasn't really done this before. He's been in commercials, but he hasn't really created a character. Even though it's a version of himself, it's still a character that we've made up. None of it is actually how LeBron James behaves. And he's there working his ass off, so into it, so fun to deal with. He is hilarious. When you watch all the scenes, none of it is because I got it out of him. He showed up rocking from the first rehearsal.
Yeah.
We told him what we thought the joke was, which is you're basically Bruno Kirby from When Harry Met Sally. That for some reason, the person that Bill Hader talks about his relationship problems with is LeBron James because they're friends. And for reasons which there's no reason for, you're cheap. And the joke was, and you couldn't care more about his relationship. Like you're totally there as a friend, which I don't know why that's funny, but it just made us laugh that he's obsessed.
And he was good with that.
Happiness. He laughed so hard. We pitched it to him at lunch one day when we were trying to get him to do the movie, and he just laughed his ass off. He got the joke instantly, and it was all nothing but fun the whole time. Then we did all our press and did some things together, and it was always great. But I went to see a game a couple of years ago when he came to the Lakers, and for some reason I felt very uncomfortable looking at him. Like I felt weird because my only experience with him was telling him what to do or guiding him in some way. And in my head, I thought, I don't want to lock eyes with him because I feel like I'm going to distract him during this game. Now, that's not true at all. There's no chance he would be distracted. But for some reason, as a neurotic Jewish man, I just thought, I don't want to bother him right now. And then we went to a game not too far before the pandemic. And I turned to my wife, and she's just lit up like a Christmas tree, smiling and waving. And I turned left, and LeBron James is blowing my wife a kiss.
Oh.
Not me, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
He didn't seem excited to see me at all, but he seemed very excited to see Leslie. But he was great.
So how long did the decision to actually release this movie as an on-demand thing, like what was the process of that? Was it quick? Was it easy? Was it the only recourse? Like, how did that work?
I had a sense that this might, be something that would be discussed, just because people don't know when the theaters are going to be open in a real way, because they can open the theaters and a lot of people may not go. And so these movies are gigantic investments. So, movies have been sold to Netflix or other streaming services, and the studios do need to make some money. They can't just hang on to all the movies and just, sit it out for the year. So when Universal called me and said, well, here, let's kick around the options for the movie, and we talked about it, very quickly I realized, the movie's done. I'm not going to leave it on the shelf for a year. And the movie is about first responders. Pete's dad in the movie is a fireman, who lost his life in service, and his mom is a nurse. In real life, Pete's mom is a nurse, and his sister's a nurse. And the movie is about sudden trauma and grief and healing. And even though it's a comedy, it is about how we get through difficult things. And it is about heroes. And it just occurred to me, this movie's supposed to come out right now. Like, it would be weird to not share this with people. So I'm kind of thrilled people are going to get to see it. I mean, you got to see it.
I did. And I'll tell you, I don't mind the whole on-demand movie thing just in general. Like, I've always kind of wanted a version of this where people just have nicer stuff and the TVs are better and they can accommodate the widescreen and all that stuff. And it never made sense to me that we were forced to go to the movies. Same thing. Like, I look at what Quibi did, where Quibi created this, you know, YouTube competitor or whatever, and they're like, you have to watch it on your phones. It's like the one thing I feel like we've learned over the last 15 years is like people like to choose how they're going to consume something, and the more choice you give them, the more they almost appreciate it. So a movie like your movie, which I would have seen in the theater, and now I guess my kids are older, but when my kids were younger, like Trainwreck. If my wife and I were going to go that, we were like, well, we'll leave my daughter home alone with our son, or we'll get a babysitter, and it would have been so much easier just to on demand it. So I like that we're at least testing this out and seeing what works and doesn't work, because I think this movie is the perfect example of like people are going to on demand this. Like it's a Friday night, there's no sports, we don't
there's
have a
no
lot of
Olympics.
options.
There's no
anything.
All you have is the King of Staten Island. I also think the movie's very emotional, and I think it's as funny as the other movies, but it's definitely very real. And sometimes you just want to cry alone. You don't want to be sitting next to somebody eating goobers next to you while you're crying. It's funny, we were testing the movie. So before the pandemic, we showed the movie to crowds of 400, and that's how we realize if it's working or not. And we take notes, and people fill out cards, and it's actually very helpful. But at one of the screenings, I'm sitting in the back taking notes, and the guy in front of me, like 7 minutes before the end of the movie, where when there's this really deep, emotional, painful scene, just picks up his popcorn, is just like, and he's eating it so loud, and I almost lost my mind. Like, I totally ruined the scene for me. And then after the movie, the studio's like, how do you think that section worked? I'm like, I don't even know what happened. I'm so angry at this popcorn eater. So, I think what I'm going to do is brainwash myself into thinking the VOD experience is perfect for this movie. And then as soon as the theaters open up, I will shit on VOD and go back to the theaters.
What are you expecting from Staten Island from this movie?
How will they feel about the movie?
Are they going to embrace it fully? Will they take it personally? How's it going to play out?
I think we describe Staten Island accurately. It's an interesting place because there's no attraction there. There's no Six Flags Staten Island. There's nothing there that would make you go there if you didn't have a friend or a relative or live there. I remember I was talking to Christopher Guest, and he said, "Oh, there used to be a great guitar shop I used to go to on Staten Island in the 70s. Like, that's the kind of place it is. A lot of people work there. Maybe they commute to the city. But the people who live there, most of them don't leave that often. And the people that don't live there don't go there unless, their friends or relatives live there. So it is a strange bubble. But everyone there was super cool when we shot the movie. There's a lot of blue-collar people there, like, the cops and firemen and nurses. It's just great people there. It reminded me of Long Island, where I grew up. I felt very at home there.
Yeah, there's some Massachusetts towns like there too that are just far enough away from Boston that you probably wouldn't commute.
Yeah.
But you also wouldn't go from Boston to go hang out there, and they just become these little bubbles that are really close to this much bigger city, but they don't interact in really any way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pete's been really funny making fun of Staten Island, but he loves it. I mean, he still lives there. So it's definitely, near and dear to his heart.
Is Pete, I mean, Pete's issues over the years have been well chronicled. But how concerned were you building a movie around him when you weren't sure what was going on with him day to day?
Well, we would just talk about it very openly because he was a producer of the movie too. And I've worked with all sorts of people. I feel like when you're very respectful and very transparent and you tell people what is required of them, for the most part, they rise to the occasion, which is what Pete did. I just said, Pete, you're the producer of this movie. There's a couple hundred people who work for you. Like, you're the boss. So you're setting the example based on how you approach this. But one part of Pete, which is really great, is he loves being responsible. He loves that people think he isn't responsible.
Right.
So nothing makes him happier than showing up early every day. Hey, Judd, I'm early. Look, you didn't think I'd be early, but I'm the early guy. So he actually was really easy to work with. But part of that is preparing someone. Here's what is expected of you. Here's the job. And people are making a big investment in you. So you need to take it very seriously. And he did. He couldn't have worked harder. And the movie's so personal that I always felt like it's a real gift for him to share his life and his story and his pain and try to make a movie that hopefully is meaningful to people. I mean, he did something that I think is kind of incredible, because all of us, when we make movies, our first movies are like heavyweights. And I always say that to Pete. I go, nobody makes the King of Staten Island right from the top of their career. We all make like 8 goofy movies before we try to, make the more substantial one. And I think he did a remarkable job, especially as a writer.
Did you feel like at this point in your career, you needed to make a movie that was a little more, I don't know, heavy?
It's not so much that I wanted to make something that was a little more substantial. I wanted to do something different. And I felt like, okay, I told a certain kind of story. I talked about relationships and coming of age stories. And I wanted to make a movie about sacrifice. And that word just kept coming into my mind for years, like sacrifice. Like, what do you expect Judd to never write about? Sacrifice. People who risk their lives for other people. And I wrote a couple of other screenplays, and I never felt like I understood it enough or cracked it, but I knew that was the space I wanted to be in. And when Pete started showing interest in coming up with a fictionalized movie that was inspired by parts of his life, I realized, this is it. This is what I've been preparing for, because a lot of the movie is about what happens after, a very brave person gives his life to help other people. How does it affect their family? How do they process, the grief from that? How does it affect his ability to know what kind of job he wants and how to get off the couch and stop smoking pot? Like, how do you not just go into a depression and have a really tough life? And, those are pretty, those are ideas that you rarely hear about in movies. And, it makes for a movie that's both very funny, but it's directly addressing grief and how people climb out of it.
Well, you're dipping into like Pete's experience, much like when you made the 40-Year-Old Virgin. Steve Carell's virginity in real life, I know,
exactly.
was really feeling you. That's on the rewatchable schedule this summer.
I love
it's
it.
the 15-year anniversary coming up. 15 years is a long time.
It happened fast. It's so
what
funny,
do you remember from that movie? So give us a little backstory so I have material for the rewatchables.
Well, the main thing I remember is I was a producer on Anchorman, and I was on the set, watching everybody shoot, and they're all killers. They couldn't be funnier. But Steve Carell was just crushing it. And Adam McKay would feed him lines, but then sometimes he would just go, give me another, give me another, give me another. And Carell's improvisations were just incredible. He was so funny that the whole cast, who were also killing, were kind of in awe of what was happening with Brick. And one day I just said to him, did you ever think about being the lead of a movie? And I don't think he had really thought that was possible at that stage in his life. I think he thought he was a funny supporting guy or a sketch player. I don't think he was chasing that at all. And I said, I think you'd be great as a lead. Do you have any ideas? And a couple of days later, he walked up to me and he had 2 ideas. And one of them, he said, was based on a sketch that he had played around with, but never really developed, about 40-Year-Old Virgin at a poker game, and he's telling sex stories, and slowly everyone realizes that they're all bullshit.
Right.
And the line that he pitched me was, he kept saying, like when you touch a woman's breast, it feels like a bag of sand, and you put your hand down her pants and there's all that baby powder. And it was so stupid, but it made me laugh so hard. And I hate to say it, I totally related to it. Just the shame, because it really is about shame, being embarrassed that you've never connected with someone in that way. And then you start thinking, maybe there's something wrong with me. And even though it's a silly movie, I did understand all the emotions behind it. And then Steve and I, talked about it and said, what if we made a high comedy, but really made this character credible? This is a real person. This is what he would be feeling at this stage.
It's interesting with that movie and a lot of the movies from that decade. You now have this generation of people who are now, I don't know, 16 to 25, and those become their movies the same way that, for us, like when we were growing up, it's like the Animal House and Caddyshack and all those things. Now it's that whole generation, really from, I don't know, 03 to 09. It's just a murderer's row when you look back. It's kind of unbelievable. And then the amount of talent that was available to be in the movies. It was like this perfect storm of filmmakers and actors and ideas. And
it's weird
really
when you get
crazy.
older. Someone put up a grid of all of those movies on Twitter the other day. And it was wild. It was, like everybody's movies, like all the Will's movies, all the Ben Stiller's movies, all the Vince Vaughn movies, all the Jim Carrey movies, all the Sandler's movies. And it was just a grid of little boxes of all of them. And on some level, you're just proud of everybody because, we were all just knuckleheads hoping to be allowed to do anything.
Yeah.
So, now that we're, most of us are in our 50s and we look back and go, wow, we did a lot of stuff. And in a moment like this, when people are really having a hard time, stuck at home, you really feel like, I'm glad there's something for them that is going to give them a break and make them happy. I really feel the value of the silliness because I know when I'm having a rough time, I might go, I think I'm going to watch, something about Mary right now. Or, or the movies that I loved from that period that I had nothing to do with. And I know, like, I'm going to have the best 2 hours of my life looking at that. Because sometimes you just think, God, we're all just such idiots. What is the point of all this? and now you realize, it makes people really happy.
Yeah, the two kind of pandemic viewings in my house are comedies and movies set on locations like Bora in Hawaii, where you just get to like escape somewhere.
Yeah.
You can watch Forgetting Sarah Marshall is a good one. It's in Hawaii. You get to go to Hawaii and stay at a resort, even though you can't leave your house.
Exactly. Yeah. Sandler's got those great movies. He's always said, let's go make a movie in a fun place.
Yeah. He kind of invented that.
I know. I invented can you shoot the movie on your own block? And Sandler was like, can you shoot the movie at a place where you want to spend your summer?
Bora. All right. So July 12th, King of Staten Island. It's very good, like all your movies. So I don't need to do too much pimping, but I'm excited for Pete because I've always liked him. I don't know him. I've never met him. I'm just saying he's just there's some celebrities out there that you just kind of instinctively root for and you don't really know why. And I've always felt like he was one of those guys. So
no, he's a good guy. He deserves all the accolades that hopefully he'll get. And I'm still concerned about the pizza cover-up story. I feel like there's a lot more to be learned about it.
Maybe he should invent one. Maybe he should invent a pizza cover-up story to help promote the movie.
We need something like that. Now, could you invite someone on this podcast who was on that team, like, someone who didn't get a lot of someone who didn't get a lot of playing time, and just see if you could trick them into finding out the truth?
Yes, I will. I'm going to put that on my summer list. What's your iPad battery right now?
I'm at 9. I'm okay. I got that.
Oh wow, we really did this. It's incredible.
Yeah,
you were at 29 when we started. I just thought you were going to zip away. Judd, thanks for giving us all the content today.
Of course, I filled a lot. I feel like I sold a lot of ads, and I'll talk to you later.
All right, appreciate it.